I've learned a lesson that some things in life that are really good take just about forever to happen, but it's worth holding on and working for them. This is one of those things. When the lights dim and I hear the sounds, 25 years disappear, and I'm back in Tron.
Here we go.
Was talking with a number of colleagues at Disney who had been thinking about Tron, and I said, here are the things I just really remember off of my gut. I remember suits that were lit, light cycles, Jeff Bridges, and a screen that looked unlike any movie screen I'd ever seen before. I said, in my opinion, that's what we're beholden to.
This is the key to a new order.
Sean Bailey called me in for a general meeting in July 2007. And, you know, in a general meeting, typically you talk about a couple different projects, but Sean really wanted to talk to me about Tron and just ask me what would my take be on a Tron sequel.
Very shortly thereafter, we met Eddie Kitsis and Adam Horowitz.
Our agents called us and said, would you be interested in Tron, which was like the dream come true because we were both obsessed with the movie.
Greetings, programs!
We felt like there were certain design elements and pieces that they had done incredibly well and were incredibly ahead of their time, but we also felt we had to do some new things. And I guess so at first I was a little apprehensive about bringing that up with Steven Lisberger.
Everybody wants to see cyberspace get real, and I think that's a really exciting thing, to have all this technology behind it, to realize it in a way that we couldn't have conceived of when we did the first film.
A movie like this, you know, you can talk to you blue in the face, but ultimately you need to show them something. So I proposed the idea of creating a 2 or 3 minute piece, kind of like a mini trailer for a movie that didn't exist yet.
We'll shoot walk-offs and take them through a series of moves. That will get the movement we want.
It was funny, as we started to write the script, Joe went off to shoot the test footage.
We got Jeff to be a part of it, which is really important.
I don't think this movie would exist without him being involved. He was integral to even getting this thing off the ground.
This technology was so fascinating, and that was very exciting to come to realize all the things that you can do. So I jumped for it and shot this trailer.
Legs out, please. Okay, move around a little bit, just.
We started saying, we think we have a story to tell, but does anyone care? And we thought, you know, Comic-Con has become kind of the barometer for what people are interested in when it comes to big movies.
We showed it to an audience that had no idea they were going to see it. I remember sitting there with Joe and a couple of guys from the studio, and we were really nervous because we thought, well, if this plays well, we're probably off and making our movie, and if it doesn't, we're probably not.
It's just a game! Not anymore.
The film got such a great reaction from the fans that Disney said, oh yeah, we can put the money that it's going to cost to make this film a reality.
It was one of those things where you kind of dream it, you imagine best case scenario, and then everything just kind of fell into place.
And action.
Look back and then maybe get up on the pedals a little bit like you're racing and kind of say, come on, Dad, let's race. You know, you can talk to him a little bit, right?
Are we on my thing? One more thing to say. So you look back and smile. Action.
The challenge of writing Tron was coming into it and saying, how do we honor the original movie, continue that story, expand on it, and take it to a new place while also opening up the world for new fans.
Tron and I, we beat the Eagle MCP and finally got out and finally we came home.
There's so much interesting, mythology in the first movie, and then we said, it has been so long. And a lot of our target audience won't have seen the original. They won't have been born when the original was created.
At the end of the original Tron, Kevin Flynn jumps out of a helicopter on top of Encom Tower. And what we're saying at that point is he created the Tron video game based on his experiences in that movie. At the same time, he's continuing to do research on this universe that he found. So he actually spends his nights beaming himself in and out of the computer world.
So we just kind of wrote this interim mythology from 82 to 89, where he gets stuck inside of the computer again, disappears off the face of the planet, for the next 20 years or so.
Well, Kevin went into the computer and he got stuck in there and he's been in there for 20 years. And that's where we find him.
The notion of living inside a computer world as an avatar is something that couldn't be more relevant in 2010.
We put together a really exciting room of people from Caltech and JPL to test our theories of, the biological form going into digital space.
And remarkably, they said, well, under certain circumstances, we could imagine in the future, if you had enough computing power and you used something called quantum science, you could have such a circumstance.
Relates directly to quantum teleportation. I mean, it fits the quantum teleportation model. His quantum information is destroyed in the process of recreating the quantum information.
It's teleportation, not
It's destroyed.
It is disappeared.
Yeah.
It is not physically destroyed. It is actually negated.
I love those guys. They've read the script, and the next thing you know, you've got a neuroscientist arguing with an artificial intelligence scientist about what an ISO girl program would really be thinking.
There are a lot of geek women like myself who love computer games, but the computer games we love are the ones that get us involved emotionally.
We realized that what Lisberger came up with all those years ago really touched a nerve with people and really kind of ignited imaginations in some way.
Each generation sees their role differently. Part of this generation's challenge is how to make this stuff real, how to bring computers into your everyday life, and they're making the film real the same way. This film really belongs to the next generation. Should I pass him a torch? Should we make it official?
Just said it, maybe. The disc.
Yeah.
It's a giant world. There's a lot more story out there than we're able to explore in our film.
There's a whole world that has grown, and we're just kind of scratching the surface of that world. And that's something that's exciting to us, is that there's a deeper mythology that we're just kind of getting into.
In 1982, I fell asleep on stage 4, and I woke up in the next Tron film. I feel like Rip Van Winkle.
I would say that the most important element in the world of Tron is light. I think that transcends our film and the first film. When you look at the first film, you think of the lines of light that kind of define the characters and the architecture and the vehicles. That's very similar to our film. Our film is a different universe, a different world. It's a much more evolved virtual space, but light is definitely the thing that links everything together.
Once you go into Tron World, everybody's got some light, or you can't come to the party.
beautiful. The effects, the look of it. You know, at first glance, just how unique it looks. No one's ever seen anything like it. But the director, Joe Kosinski, is a designer and an architect, and he comes at this film with a unique perspective that really creates something new.
The look of the first film, you know, the DNA of the original Tron is inherent, I think, in our film. You know, the idea was that the server was cut off from the real world in the 1980s.
It has developed free of the internet. This is not a movie about the web. This is a world that has grown on a server and become something very potent and unique.
This is the evolution of Flynn's world within cyberspace. You can almost think of it as a cyber Galapagos, where it has evolved on its own.
The lines of light that flow seamlessly throughout the architecture and the vehicles and the costumes is probably the most important theme of the film.
The look of Tron is dark silhouetted objects bathed in atmosphere with low-lying clouds kind of nested between in a kind of Japanese landscape painting. And then the dominant light source is the self-lighting of things. It's the Tron lines.
What they've added to this world in comparison to the last is a grander sense of geography. I mean, there's the lightning storms and the weather, and there's also the cliffs and the mountains and
atmosphere and rain and wind and all these things that they weren't able to do in the first film, but my kind of justification was the simulation has over time gotten more and more realistic, and it's tried to kind of create a simulation of the real world.
There's Tron metal, there's Tron rain, there's all kinds of physical things that were not achievable in computer graphics in the original, which now, thanks to the advances in games and everything else, that everyone sees real-time computer graphics that look so amazing now, it seemed only natural to bring those physical properties and phenomena into the Tron world.
When we cut to those shots inside, that's an open-air thing. You gotta feel the wind and the rain kind of blowing through there. That's great, though.
My big goal was to really make it feel real.
Lights up, and 3, 2, 1, go!
I wanted it to feel like we took motion picture cameras into the world of Tron and shot it. So I wanted to build as many sets as possible. I wanted the materials to be real materials, glass, concrete, steel. So it had this kind of visceral quality to it.
All right, so we're going into sacred territory. This is Kevin Flynn's secret lab. And what this space is meant to tell the story is this takes the place of the lab from the first movie. This is one of my favorite details in the whole movie, and I hope we get it picked up, but this is actually the MCP desk caddy. And that's from the first movie.
This film, to our benefit, did create a lot of great sort of grand sets to be able to, you know, not have to pretend so much.
I think the juxtaposition between kind of the real world and the textures and the colors and the tones and the materials that we're going to kind of see in the first few minutes of the film are going to hopefully be so sharply contrasted by the clean surfaces and the really clean lines in Tron. So that was definitely an intention. This is one of our bigger sets of the film. We have 4 large sets, this probably being one of the larger ones. This is a solid glass floor. It's an uplit glass floor. We're about 10 feet off the stage, the soundstage floor right now. Light is an integral part of our design process on this film. Everything from the fireplace is lit to the table's lit to, you know, we've got lighting in the air conditioning vents, and there's lighting in the pools, and there's lots of set lighting in every pocket we can kind of cram it.
So our suits actually glow and throw light on the other actors in the sets, so it's practical.
Let's split, man.
It was really about innovating technology. It was taking things that we already knew and pushing the envelope. That was the goal, really, to say, here's the first, here's the technological advancement in a costume for a movie.
Here's a world that's all digital. There's not really going to be a seamstress. That was really the hardest part, is to kind of get your head around, wait a minute, now how are things made? If it's all materialized, then we don't need buttons, we don't need zippers, we don't need any kind of enclosures. So how do we put stuff together? How does somebody get dressed? And we had to come up with a way to sew fabric together so that it didn't look like it was stitched together.
Neville Page and Joe Kosinski had worked on concept art, made these incredible sweeping line gestures, like these beautiful concepts for the costume with light everywhere. And you're going, but wait, his arm has to bend, and when he takes the disc, you know, I've never seen a light that could move like that on someone's body without breaking. How do we do this?
What we do here is we take the designs of the costumes and we start with a sculpting process. After those pieces are cast and body shopped, the final molds are made. These costumes are special effects costumes, and what makes it special effects costumes is the fact that we are adding light to all the costumes.
These are all foam rubber suits. They all have integrated electronics that are inside them. Completely flexible. Even the lights are flexible overall. Inside this foam rubber suit is a whole matrix of wiring, and they all start from a centralized place in the back where we actually connect into. This will drive all the power. Ready to go clubbing.
There's 4 layers, right? So I have like a foundation, which kind of sucks everything in, and then like a barrier, and then like this other electronics thing, hence the lights, and then this part, which is like a latex balloony type material that kind of, you know, sticks on.
Lights go on, please.
The technology to do these types of films has grown in such leaps and bounds since the first film, and really the sky's the limit. It's kind of whatever you can really conceive, you can pretty much bring to fruition.
We're the next generation of 3D cinematography after Avatar, so it takes all that technology that Jim Cameron came up with to the next level.
It's different.
Shooting this movie in 3D was, I think, the right decision to be made, and it was a lot of foresight on Joe's and Disney's part to make that decision. From the very beginning, Joe wanted to make it immersive 3D kind of window. When we go into the computer, you're going to see something you've never really seen before.
We had to create everything in this world. So between the environments, the vehicles, and our digital character, visual effects has been working on this film for about 2 years.
There's roughly a little over 1,500 shots in this film, but with layout approvals, animation approvals, 3D approvals, it's roughly like 6,000 plus shots, it feels like. Knowing that this Clue character was going to be Jeff Bridges at this earlier age, that was incredibly challenging, and we really had a goal of pushing that to the next level.
You are a very rare bird, aren't you?
On set, Jeff would give his performance, and then they had a body double named John Reardon who would study that performance, and he would act out the scene sort of mimicking the way that Jeff Bridges performed it, and then we basically cut off John Reardon's head in the computer and put in the digital Clue head.
I took the system to its maximum potential. I created the perfect system.
Jeff Bridges will actually create the all-digital character, as opposed to animators kind of interpreting what Jeff Bridges might do.
You'll all be wearing these next year. This is the latest style.
It's 4 little lipstick cameras that face up, and so when Jeff is performing or talking, those cameras record those little dots so that later on in the post-production process, they can use that to drive this specific animation rig for Jeff.
Of course, you're right. Enjoy the drink. It's very gratifying to know that I can play myself or the character that I'm playing at any age. It's really the beginning of a whole new era of filmmaking.
From a designer point of view, it was just a kind of a dream come true to assemble a team of designers that I thought were the best in every field and bring them together and create this amazing art department.
You believe in the users?
My user has information that could make this free system again.
Are you a user?
He came here to help us.
Your user can't help you now, my little program.
If the users can no longer help us, we're lost.
Prepare to terminate.
You're gonna jump. It's the only way to help Tron.
Don't you be duressed.
Don't worry.
The thing that intrigued me about animation, there were a couple things that I really liked about animation. One was the fact that not too many people were doing it. In Boston at that time, it was already very strange to get into film, let alone animation. I liked that aspect of it. It was sort of rebellious to get into that. I had a partner back there named Eric Ladd, and between the two of us, we just started getting in animation. I mean, at the most fundamental level you can imagine. I mean, Bolexes and Aries cameras with, stop motion motor drives added to them. And we used to cut our own cells. We made a film called Cosmic Cartoon, which then got nominated the first year of the Student Academy Awards. And it was sort of a tripped out, arty film. So even back then, we were sort of on the horns of a dilemma. The original Lisberger Studios was artistically inclined, not commercially inclined. But once you start getting in animation, you need help and you need people, support. You need other artists to work with. And then you need the money for the facility and, to pay these people to keep them all under one roof. And so very quickly you realize that you're going to have to become commercial. And we started doing commercials in Boston, and we were excited about backlit animation, which was a way to create visual effects that weren't based on reflective light. It wasn't painted cells. It was mats with light shining directly into the lens of the camera, and the light would be diffused. And you got very intense colors because you used theatrical gels, so the saturations were really pleasing. People weren't doing backlit characters. They were using it as an effect to make things glow and pulse and logos. And what we did was we tried to do a character that was backlit. And two of the key people at Lisberger Studios were two animators, John Norton and Roger Allers.
This was a tiny studio of, people in their 20s just getting together and doing whatever they could find to do. We were doing commercials, we did Sesame Street, Electric Company, that kind of stuff. And Steve was kind of the force that held the whole studio together.
John did a drawing of a line character, and then we transferred it to Codaliths and we backlit it. And that test was this liquid neon character. And he was electronic. And since he was electronic, we nicknamed him Tron. In his first carnation, just this little test, he smashed these two discs of light together, and they exploded and circled around and came back. And it worked out really well, that little piece of animation. And so we had this electronic warrior as a character in the studio, but we weren't sure what we were really going to do with that yet.
Steve sold it as a radio promo spot.
Rock 94 and a half. WCOZ.
It was pretty strong. It was pretty striking. And I think he sold it to more than one radio station. He was good at doing that. And that was the start. He was thinking, yeah, we could do a whole backlit character, and the whole movie could be like that. And that was sort of the germ of it, was just light on black. Here's this guy who just made a studio out of nothing. He was a guy who just believed in whatever he wanted to do. And I think that's what always inspired everybody. He was always somebody who could gather everybody together, get them excited by their ideas, and just say, yeah, let's make a movie. That kind of Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland thing. Oh, I've got a brush, I've got a barn. You put things together, out of what you had at hand. And no one ever thought of, oh, this is going to fall on its face. We were much less cynical back then, I guess.
At the time, I was producing stage plays with the Boston Repertory Theater that I helped found, and I was also a lawyer representing a lot of the artists who was associated with the theater. And I was introduced to Steven Lisberger, who was making animated commercials at the time. And he had this dream of creating an animated Olympics. And he had gotten a grant from the American Film Institute to create an animated Olympic short. So we took this clip to New York City and basically sold two animated specials to NBC, to Don Ohlmeyer at the time, that was head of the Olympics. And we sold animated Winter Olympics and an animated Summer Olympics.
The new Mr. Heavyweight, Ivan Visovensky.
You've got to understand, at the time in Boston, we had all the animators that you could get, and there were about 6 of us. And so here we had 2 television specials that we were supposed to deliver for the 1980 Olympics, and we didn't have enough people. So we packed up, moved 20 people because we had ink and paint people, and we also had background people, and we moved the whole studio, the Gypsy Caravan, all the way out to Venice, California. And at that point, we were already thinking about a Tron film, but it was down the road. We had to do Animal Olympics first. And we came out here and set up shop and brought in many other people who were local.
It was designed so it could be inserted like the regular coverage during the Olympics, but we could cut in and out. And now let's check and see how the cartoon athletes are doing.
Now he gets ready for his big dismount.
Look at that height!
Whoa, beautiful landing, and a little something extra for the crowd. And that 9.5 means a gold medal for the Asian Bruce Quakamoto.
We had two specials. One came out in the wintertime, but by the summertime one, the U.S. protested the Russians invading Afghanistan, so the Olympics were canceled for the Americans, and so was our movie just as we finished it. So that was when we were starting to shift over to the idea of Tron.
We were, in 1979, thinking about trying to make Tron as an independent movie. And what happened was when the Olympic boycott occurred, it so undermined the momentum of the studio that we now needed to get involved with someone who could, make Tron a reality on the scale it needed to be made on.
Then we had in computer experts, people who were in the field developing things. We had in Alan Kay, who was one of the guys who was developing basically the concept for personal computers. I remember him in and talking to us about, yeah, we're seeing this idea for computers that could be like a briefcase, and you could just open it up and you could take it anywhere you wanted and plug it in and you could tap into any library in the world. And we were all thinking, that sounds really cool. All these things were really inspiring, and we kept listening to the way computers were designed to look for equivalents in terms of story, in terms of societal structure. The way the computer communicates with itself would suggest what kind of societal structure would be in the computer.
You're getting brutal, Sark. Brutal and needlessly sadistic.
Thank you, Master Control.
And there were also these other aspects of, how the users communicated with the programs.
Yes, sir. We don't have much time left to find that file. This is top priority.
Yes, sir, I know, sir.
This isn't just correcting my bank statement or phone bill problem again. This is a must.
I understand, sir.
And whether this, sort of had a parallel with some sort of like a religious experience of this world communicating with these large controlling forces. So there were all these things working on different levels.
It's begun.
What would be the champion in the future? Would it be the mainframe or the personal computer?
Your access suspended. Report to Dillinger.
It was kind of like an authoritarian government.
I said move!
Versus a democratic government.
This is the key to a new order. This code disc means freedom.
And I think that's one of the main themes that was dealt with in Tron. And it was very prophetic of what really happened.
Within the story, it portrays the computer as an all-powerful tool.
We have one of the most sophisticated pieces of equipment in existence.
Oh, I know all that.
And I would say within the actual production of the movie, the computer is kind of the all-powerful tool, too. And I think that has been prophetic. I think it's happening today. I mean, it's gradually taking over every area of production.
This group of people making Tron was saying that there's a new space that's happening that's completely other. It's not in suburbia. It is disquieting to think about. And it is moving really fast, and it could affect all aspects of our lives. And, I don't know whether people were still thinking, well, it's going to be Hal or something, is going to gobble us up. But my feeling was, well, if there is this other world happening, what could be better for it than to get as many artists involved with it as soon as possible? Because to me, the artists were the remedy to overthinking it from a scientific standpoint. So it wouldn't just be about efficiency, and it wouldn't just be about, things that were literal. That the artists, if they got involved in cyberspace, would bring metaphysical aspects alive or point them out that had to do with things like the users, or even just to shape it and give it some humanness.
Chris Lane was doing these big environmentals of the computer world. He always worked on black paper, and all these things were very dynamic, stretching off into the distance, and sometimes they were like futuristic cowboy shootouts, other times they were like car races, and those, I have to say, were really what was selling this picture.
At the time, we had a room down in Venice where we had artwork up, and you could sort of, we would bring people down there, people from the various studios, and they would stand in this room and look at all this really far out artwork, and they'd say, wow, this feels amazing looking at this stuff, but I don't know.
When you sat in it, you felt a little bit like you were in a wooden goldfish bowl. It was a strange little room, but having these drawings plastered around the room, he would do his dog and pony show, getting people interested in it.
And when we came out to Disney, we had our script, which was entirely storyboarded already, and we had a lot of production design work. And we had the approach to make the movie. We had figured out that we wanted to film it in live action and then use codaliths and combine it with computer animation. All that had basically been figured out. But when we came out here, the attitude was, well, this is very exciting, but how's this possible?
There was a tremendous amount of trust that was given to both, you know, especially to Steven, because, you know, no one knew what he was really talking about. We kind of had this vague idea and had these fantastic drawings. And I remember going to a meeting that Tom Wilhite had set up to get us excited about it, and had some artwork, and they had Steven, and he's trying to tell us the story, and Donald was there, and it was, you know, I think most of the people were kind of looking at each other saying, you know, I don't have a clue, you know, inside this computer and this game, and this guy's going to go back and forth, and he's going to be sucked in, and all this stuff, and everyone was looking at each other going, aha, aha. At the same time, it was, you could tell by the presentation that these people were passionate, that they believed that, you know, there was no question that this was going to be something special, and it was going to be very, very unique. And I think at the time, we were looking for something unique. We were looking for something different that audiences were going to respond to.
It was Disney that sort of connected with it on a sort of gut level, because it felt like, I hate to use this word, but almost Fantasia energy, that it was really designed by artists, and it was experimental, and it was adventuresome.
Disney was always the company we wanted to go to, because we thought that this was, since it involved computer animation and it involved a lot of other special effects, that this was made for Disney. We showed them sample footage or backlit slides, and it was such an exciting visual that I think in Ron Miller's mind, and maybe Tom Wilhite's mind, who was the executive, they kept saying to themselves, what would Walt do in this case?
We wanted to recapture that excitement that years ago Walt had done with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Swiss Family Robinson, some of the real classics.
Something about Walt Disney, whenever he saw a new technology, other people might have been afraid of it, but he could immediately see the possibilities in it and use it. You know, use it to his advantage and create something new out of it. In the case of Tron, I would say it's taking computer technology, which was in its infancy at the time, and making something new with it. You know, turning it into a film, which I think a lot of people felt like, yeah, big deal, so what? But it was a big deal.
What made the studio decide to really push on with the movie, I think, was the video game craze that was happening through America at that time, the arcades and their success, the marketing potential of it, you know, the things that were going to come out of it. And I think that they had sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the big effects movies that were being made to do something here. At that time, they weren't making any films other than the Herbie films, and they were recycling their animation a lot, so they didn't have a lot of product coming out at all.
Well, Disney, just before Tron was released, was at kind of this in-between sort of period. And, you know, we were searching really desperately to try to find something that was going to break through and be popular for young people. And at the time, Disney was kind of considered old-fashioned. It wasn't as contemporary. A lot of the other studios were doing projects that were, frankly, more exciting at the time. And so when Tron came along, it was met with a lot of anticipation by the younger people at the studio, And I think the older generation at the studios, a little bit of a transition time, were wondering, what in the world is this all about, and what are we doing, and had no clue as to what it was going to be, because it was so far ahead of its time.
Harrison Ellenshaw was the ambassador and the young prince of the Disney lot, and really knowledgeable and great taste, and was sort of acted. I saw how valuable he would be to us here at Disney, because he knew everything that one needed to know about Disney Studios, how things got done. And he did work on Star Wars, and his heritage is a great one back to his father, Peter Ellenshaw.
We were just finishing up on Watcher in the Woods, and I remember being in my office one day, and Steven Lisberger walked in, and I had never met him before, and he came in and he told me very passionately about the screenplay of Tron. And he also had with him a number of illustrations, and it was pretty evident that this guy already had done a lot of work and had a lot of people do some work on what looked to be a very speculative and very different and very interesting film.
Harrison had a lot of respect among the people who were running the studio as far as what kind of special effects things they could do, because he was a well-known matte painter, as his father was. And so he was the person I think they looked to say, can we really do this? And he'd say, yeah, I think these guys can do this.
All the way along, I think everyone was looking at Harrison's eyes and making sure he wasn't blinking, to make sure that, in fact, to say, yeah, he says he can do it, so, okay, I guess it can be done.
I had the initial situation where I did have to kind of bridge this gap between the old guard at Disney and the new young Turks coming on board to do this backlit stuff and this computer stuff.
Steven Lisberger, had a very kind of a Street Fighter approach to everything, and he was very blunt in how he spoke, and he didn't mince words. And I got the feeling that a lot of people in management at that time were kind of afraid of him. They didn't know what to do with him, really.
But after a while, I think there was certainly the ability for each side to live with the other side, because there was something that was so new, and the studio really wanted to show that they were capable of doing something new.
Their main concern was production problems, how we were going to put all this together. So when we got to Disney, the project sort of froze here, and while I did a test, a codolith backlit test, to determine whether these techniques would actually work.
Well, the studio decided that since this was a first-time director, and since this first-time director was proposing a rather, some would say, outrageous way of making a film, Steven was allowed to go and shoot a number of scenes using actors dressed in kind of gray costumes. He shot it onto 35mm black and white, and then the codoliths were made. And the interesting part about the test is that these actors were all against white background.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.